It was the kind of silence that hums louder than noise. Inside the elegant restaurant overlooking the city skyline, every sound seemed exaggerated. The clink of silverware, the muted chatter, the whisper of linen napkins being folded. At table 12 sat Thomas Whitaker, a billionaire whose arrogance could fill the entire floor. And across from him, his young daughter, Emma, stared silently at her plate, her tiny fingers tracing shapes on the tablecloth. She was deaf, and he had never learned to speak her language. "Talk to her," said the waitress softly, setting down their drinks. Her name was Maya. She was young, black, and carried herself with quiet dignity, the kind that comes from struggle and surviving it. Thomas scoffed. "She's fine," he said dismissively. "She doesn't need all that," but Maya didn't move. She looked at him, really looked, and said, "Sir, she does. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening." Emma's eyes flickered with something. Confusion. Maybe hope. Maya crouched beside her and gently touched her hand. Then, with delicate movements, she began signing, "Your dress is beautiful. Did you choose it yourself?" For a moment, the little girl froze, her mouth opening just slightly. Then her hands fluttered back, shaky but eager, signing, "Yes, I love pink." Thomas's brows drew together. He'd never seen his daughter's face light up like that. Not once. He looked around. Other diners were watching too, some smiling, some whispering. The billionaire, used to commanding every room, suddenly felt very small. "Where did you learn that?" he asked stiffly. Maya didn't look up. "From my mother," she said. "She was deaf. People used to pretend she didn't exist, so I made sure I'd never do the same to anyone else." Her voice was steady, but beneath it, you could feel the ache of memory, the echo of years spent being invisible to people like him. Thomas shifted in his seat. He told himself he didn't have time for this, for feelings, for guilt, for anything that cracked the shell of his control. But watching Maya sign to his daughter, something inside him began to stir. "When was the last time I made her smile?" he thought. "When was the last time I tried?" Emma giggled as Maya showed her the sign for ice cream. The sound, faint, breathy, but real, made Thomas's chest tighten. He wanted to say something, anything, but words failed him. Later, as Maya cleared their table, Thomas said, "You shouldn't interfere with my parenting." The entire room went quiet. Maya looked at him, and this time her voice was barely above a whisper. "Then start parenting." Her words hit him harder than any insult could. He felt the air leave his lungs. People at nearby tables glanced away, pretending not to hear, but everyone had. Even Emma was still, her wide eyes moving between them. For the first time, Thomas saw the fear in his daughter's face. Not fear of the world, but fear of her father. He left the restaurant that night with his daughter's small hand in his. The city outside buzzed with neon light and the sound of honking cars. He said nothing during the drive home, but his thoughts were a storm. At home, he pulled out his phone and searched. Basic sign language for beginners. That night, for the first time in his life, he practiced. Awkwardly at first, stumbling through every gesture. But when Emma peeked into his office, he turned, smiled nervously, and signed, "Hi, sweetheart." She froze, then ran to him, hugging his neck so tightly he thought he'd break. Weeks passed. Every morning they practiced together. Every evening he learned more. His empire didn't crumble. His billions didn't disappear. But something inside him shifted. A piece of his humanity he didn't know he'd lost began to grow again. Then one day, Thomas returned to that same restaurant. Maya was there, serving a large family in the corner. When she saw him approach, she tensed, expecting anger, maybe arrogance, but he simply smiled and signed, "Thank you for helping me hear my daughter." The restaurant went still again, but this time the silence felt different. Warm. Full. A small tear shimmered in Maya's eyes. Then she smiled, signing back, "You did it yourself." Thomas turned to Emma, who was sitting beside him, and signed, "Order whatever you want, Princess." Her laughter filled the room. The same room where months earlier her father's pride had spoken louder than his heart. Now everyone could see the change. Even Maya stepped back, smiling softly, knowing she had witnessed something rare: redemption. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back, and sometimes the loudest lessons are taught in silence. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, subscribe to Cinematic Whispers, and tell me in the comments, what's something you've learned about listening even without words? Strong CTR line for end screen text. He had everything except a heart, until one waitress taught him to listen.